everybody, I'm Merisu the Art Sheep, and thank you so much for checking out this video, and happy Valentine's Day to you all! Yay! Another year, another Valentine's Day, another year on Valentine's Day that I do not have a boyfriend. Oh well, anyway, moving on. I don't need a boyfriend, I got my art, and for today's artwork, I am of course drawing my usual Valentine's Day lovey-dovey artwork, and it is of my adorable Misato Yushoko and her partner XR from my original series, Revolution in Full Color. And the entire thing that I'm going for with is actually based off of an illustration that I saw on Twitter by the artist Yuumei of a girl holding a balloon, and inside the balloon was the moon, and I thought that looked absolutely adorable. And then also it made me think of this ever photo that you might have just seen it earlier. It's of a cat sitting on a ball that glowed that looked like a moon, and I was like, let's just merge them together. So I came up with this idea of Misato on top of a glowing balloon moon, and hanging down below is her partner XR. And yeah, it's not very lovey-dovey, but to be honest, that's kind of intentional, because they're not really that lovey-dovey, because they're not really a couple. They're partners in crime, but they're not really partners beyond that, at least to the beginning. Misato kind of hopes it could be more, and so does he actually, because they both like each other, but at the same time, hijacks ensues. It's never that simple with love. And if anybody's heard the description of Revolution Full Color, you'll know that Misato ends up getting feelings for the, or at least an attraction to the leader of the rebellion group, Nightlight, from my series. And I don't really want to go further into it, mainly because I don't want to spoil the story too much. I want to keep some things a surprise and such, but at the same time, it would also just take me a gazillion years, and I don't want to spend all that time talking about that, because I don't got the time, because this drawing was really quick. It did not take me long at all. Which, yeah, that's something that's I need to figure out how it works. So in clipstudiopaint, if you go onto the drawings info, it will show you how much data the file of your drawing is, the size dimensions, and will also give you an estimate on how long you spent on the drawing. And I found this out for the artist Rosary, lovely fan art she did of Mau Mau, and she then posted like the file info on it, and she said, I didn't know clipstudiopaint kept track of the time you spent on your drawing. And I was like, oh wow, I can do that. And that came in real handy for me, because unless I'm recording Speedpaint, I actually don't know how long I spend on a drawing. So anytime you see a description, you'll see time spent on drawing. I'll either write, I don't know, or I'll write an estimate guess. Again, if it doesn't have a Speedpaint. And I usually guess by putting, I usually always am listening to music, or I'm watching videos of some sort, be a TV show or YouTube videos, and so I'll just add up the time to try to figure out, okay, how long did this actually take me, and that gives me a general idea. And it's not that far off of a guess, but it is nonetheless a guess. And even sometimes with my speed paints, it's not accurate, because I might forget something, or I might not do the beginning sketch to speed paint, because I just don't feel like recording that process and such. But nonetheless, it is more accurate when it's speed paint, or at least I thought so, because when I was looking at my Aurora drawing, the time that clipstudiopaint said I spent on the drawing was 25 hours, but the time that was used in the OBS files, like once I put them all together into DaVinci Resolve, and then just looked at the time before I sped it up, it said that it was only 20 hours, so it was like 5 hours less. And I don't quite understand why there's that much of a difference. I do understand there will be some difference, because Sometimes I end up pushing pause on OBS, and I forget to push resume when I go back to drawing, so I end up missing some stuff. Or also, maybe there's just something that I'm doing that's like a little touch up here and there, and I don't feel like I need to record it because it's just so small. But I didn't expect it to be that different. And there was Never Drawing 2 where it was a lot different in time. So I don't know how Clipstudiopaint gathers the data and guesses how long you spent on your drawings. So, yeah. But with this drawing, it said that I took about, I think, 2 hours on it. So, yeah, real quick drawing. And it was a lot of fun. I really like how Misato looks. She just looks so adorable. And so does XR. I haven't drawn him that much, to be honest. I've drawn 2. So I drew 1 beta reference sheet that looked awful. And then I drew another beta reference sheet that looked better. And then I drew a never one. And then I drew a never one. So 4 reference sheets probably in total. No, wait. So I drew the beta one. And that was a long time ago. He had brown hair and he wore colorful clothing back then. And then I drew a never one, and that was a lot more better. It looked a lot more nicer in the art style, but he still had brown hair. Then I drew the next one, and but then I had his hair black, and I turned his entire clothing to be gray. And then I drew a more proper one to match up with Misato's and the rest of Nightlight's, because they all had very detailed reference sheets and he didn't. So I gave him more of a proper reference sheet. And I also made an age chart reference sheet with him as well. So probably about 4 or 5 times there. And then illustration-wise, I've only drawn him twice. Once on the promotional artwork, and even that was like from behind, and then once in this drawing that I did of them staying home, just hanging out. I don't know. Yeah, so I've definitely drawn him a couple of times, but not that much. But then again, more than the other members of Nightlight. I need to draw illustrations with them because I think it'd be really fun. It'd be good practice. But yeah, the hardest thing about when I draw him and Misato together is it's kind of obvious when you just look at them. His color scheme is very monochromatic and very dull and neutral. That's kind of the point. Even his name, it used to be Radcliffe. His last name, his first name is Sean. It was originally supposed to be I think it was supposed to be Jeffrey Radcliffe, and that was going to be reference to the Invisible Man 2, because that was the name of the Invisible Man in the 1930s, or it's 1940s. Yeah, the 1940s Universal sequel to the original Invisible Man. It was called the Invisible Man 2, and that one, the Invisible Man, was more of a sympathetic villain. Like, he wasn't even a villain, he was someone who was on the run. It's actually really good. I absolutely love that movie. And for some reason, I wanted to name him after the Invisible Man in that. Don't ask me why. I guess maybe it kind of fits with his character in some ways. So I named him Jefferson, and not Jeffrey. I named him Jefferson Radcliffe. But then I didn't really like the name Jefferson the more I thought about it. I mean, I liked it, but I didn't really want it for his first name, so I changed it to Sean, because I don't know why. I think my brother was mentioning the name Sean, and I was just like, I really like that. But then I kind of went back and forth between Sean and Scott, because Scott kind of had more references in it, but Sean sounded nicer, so in the end I went with Sean. But his last name still stayed as Radcliffe, and I'm like, okay, I'll just keep the name Radcliffe. But then I was like, wait, Radcliffe means Red Hill, and it's kind of weird having someone who's so monochromed have a name that means not just the color, but probably the brightest color in the rainbow. So I was just like, I'm gonna change it. So I looked up different names that meant gray, because that is definitely what I was going for him, because every single character in Revolution of Color is represented by a color theory, big thing, and his color would be, of course, gray. So I looked up names that meant gray, and I even asked my audience and my follower and pal, Riot Kitty, suggested a name Farron, which means iron gray, and I was like, that's actually perfect. It was either that or it was literally gonna be gray. So in the end, I went with Sean Farron, but he mostly goes by his codename XR. Which, for the record, that comes from the TV show Buzz Lightyear of Star Command. that was a really fun TV show. Me and my brother loved watching that as a kid, and my favorite character was Mira, but also XR. I loved XR. He was such a funny robot, and I just had to name a character after him. In fact, the name XR and the entire aesthetic with XR actually was from a completely... It was just something that I came up with fun when I was rewatching Buzz Lightyear, and I just kind of always saved it, and then I finally used it for him. In fact, originally, he wasn't even supposed to be involved with... I mean, he was Misato's partner, but they were supposed to kind of have a entirely different relationship later on. But as I was going through Misato's relationships and such, I was like, I actually kind of like the idea of them being together. So I'm going... It's kind of, like I said... It's a little bit of a love triangle question. Who will Misato end up with? The member of Nightlight or her partner XR? I mean, but at the same time, it's a little more than that. You'll just have to wait and see. And hopefully I'll be able to get to it. But until then, yeah, for this drawing, like I said, I just kept everything really simple. Colors are really simple. Lighting was a little hard because it was so bright, and it was like when you have to deal with that big of contrast between shadows and lighting, it can get a little difficult. Sometimes it's really easy, sometimes it's not. This time it was like medium, whatever. And then in the background I just added a whole bunch of stars and clouds, you know, they're in the sky. And then I also added some hearts to make it seem a little more lovey-dovey, because this is Valentine's Day after all. I don't know why. I don't know why this ended up being my Valentine's Day drawing. I guess it's just because I didn't have anything else, because the actual drawing that I had planned is not finished yet. It's my Kalala Princess drawing. In fact, as of the time this video comes out, you would have seen me working on it via my Valentine's Day themed live stream. And it was supposed to be my Valentine's Day drawing, but it was just taking too long. It's Thursday right now is the time I'm recording it, and it's taken me 50 minutes just to figure out where everything's gonna go. The composition's just not easy, but whatever. So I just decided to do this instead for Valentine's Day. It was a lot more relaxing and fun. It's like, we'll save the princess drawing for after Valentine's Day, so that way we don't have to rush with it and it's a mess. And we'll do this on Valentine's Day. Anyway, that was the drawing. I hope you enjoyed. Just a really short little thing. Hope you have a lovely day. Hope you find someone you love. And until then, I will be back with another one, hopefully real soon. Like I said, got a Kalala Princess drawing coming up. Until then, bye! Oh, one more thing. I forgot to mention. The title of this drawing's name is Fly Me to the Moon. And that, of course, is a reference to Neon Genesis Evangelion's ending song, which is Fly Me to the Moon. I actually first heard of that song through that anime, but I do really like the original version by K. Ballard and the updated version with Frank Sinatra. They're both really beautiful. But yeah, that's what this is a reference to, and one reason why is because in addition to the whole moon aesthetic and Misato liking moons, Misato is named after Misato Katsuragi from Neon Genesis Evangelion.